So you can say welcome to everyone. I don't know how many people are entering now.
Yeah. So I would say good evening, good night for everyone, or morning, depending on where you're watching this. It was interesting that Elsa, as usual, we did an opening prayer, and Elsa was saying, Vanessa will do the course. And we're gonna, the way I see it, I'm just a means to the course. There's a lot of help and support from our guided mentors, so I can prepare these. It was very interesting, as we are going to talk about Spiritism and spirits today, and the topic covers is, I'll share. This night I slept for 12 hours, very deep. I have no recollection. I'm pretty sure they were saying, giving me the course so I can give the course to everybody else, or I relearn. Anyway, today we're going to talk about the introduction of in this program, the roadmap program. And the first topic we're going to talk about is the history of Spiritism, and a bit more on what is Spiritism, by the way. You'll talk a story of something. What is it? What we are here to talk about? I think the first thing, before we start, I got a quote from Paul. I'm a super fan. Really, I love everything that is related to Paul and his history and how he got here, and all the messages and the letters that he left us, and his example mostly, because the letters are powerful because of his example. And I got this one that tells us that he instructed people that he preferred to do nothing without your consent, in order that your goodness might not come by compulsion, but in your own accord. And the reason I brought you this is, when you talk about the Spiritism, we are not here to convince anyone, to make you believe, or to anything. What the Spiritism tries to convey is, when you feel ready, these are the teachings. We are here to help convey these teachings, and that is not mine, that is not Elsa's, that is not anyone's, or even Kardec, that we are going to hear who is he in a couple of minutes, but the spirits. And it talks about our free will, that is a basis of Spiritism, that we have our free will to act according to our own accord. And Chico Xavier, that was a very famous medium in Brazil, very enlightened one, by his mentor, give us this. I'm going to read only the last sentence. The spirit can choose a straight or sinuous path, a dark or bright one, as per its own accord. That is very much in line with what Paul told us. So whenever we go through today, the other days, or anything that is related to this, it's an invite for all of us to go, what path do we want to take? As we get these teachings, what path do we want to take? That is an invite for today and for the upcoming sessions. So what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to share a bit of my story so you know who I am, a bit of me. We are going to meet Professor Ribeiro, or most people know him as Allan Kardec. And we are going to talk about, what is Spiritism? Has it ever existed? Does it differ from spiritualism? Do we have a pope or a single authority on anything? Is it a religion of any sort? Does it have an objective? What it is? What we are here for? This is the goals and the agenda for today. A bit on myself. I didn't put a picture again, so I'm just gonna talk about it. Vanessa Ferreira, I'm Brazilian. I was born in Araçatuba, that is countryside, the state of São Paulo in Brazil. It's 600 kilometers west of São Paulo capital. I was very fortunate and extremely grateful that I was born in a family of Spiritists. I'm actually the 4th generation of Spiritism. My great-grandparents somehow got to know this and passed it on. And my great-grandparents they were simple people. On one side, he was a carpenter as Jesus, that same profession that was my great-grandfather. The other one was so in very enlightened spirit. And the other one was, back in Brazil and in some regions, this is very common, these kind of cowboys that had cows and bulls through the country from one place to the other. They would do on horseback. Yeah. Now it's very unusual to see it, but you see on the movies. So they were very simple people, not much education, but they truly, truly believed on this. It's interesting that they had their first meetings under a tree. It's true, I'm not making this up. They had these, and the group that my family belongs to, they had their first meeting under a tree, and they could barely read because, they were simple people. And they progressed, they understood, they got to learn. And more than actually knowing the theory, they acted on it. So by example, and this fall through, I myself and my sister, we don't know anything different than this. And we know this. Sometimes people say, do you know the books? Yes, I know the books. I have been studying them since I was, my mom says that she was telling me yesterday that probably in this life, I've seen the first spiritist phenomena on her belly, on her tummy, because this is how, and actually I was fortunately born because of spiritist phenomena, because I was too lazy to be born, and someone told my mom, saying, the spirits are telling that she needs to be born today. And then I was born that day. And here I am. I've been in Spiritism, I've been studying this throughout my life. As I moved countries, cities and country, I studied in Sao Paulo. And then last 6 years, I was in Singapore. I have studied and professed this philosophy and also taught this. I do other things, of course. So I'm a business manager on my spare time when I'm not doing this kind of thing. Here in the UK, I'm part of the British Union, Spiritist Union, and as well part of SSL. And sometimes I do other talks in different countries or different ones in different ways. So that's me. This is not about me, so I'll talk about my interesting stuff and my history, just to give some background on how I came. And probably it's important on this journey that the way I teach this, the way I express these feelings is heavily influenced by that history, and by that history of how this gets into your life in everything that you do, and how you think about it's not something separate, because I don't know anything else. So this is part of me, and most of the time I have no history in any other tradition. So sometimes I have some difficulties in making bridges. I try as much as I can to make bridges to other traditions, so it's easier to understand. So if we forget about me, we are going to talk about someone that is way more interesting than me. It's a gentleman, as they call here in the UK, a gentleman from France, a French, that was born more than 200 years ago. His full name was Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivel. He was born in Lyon in 1804. I have to see the notes here. I always know it's in the beginning of the century, of the 19th century. He was born in a family. He was not a noble, as they usually call the royalty, but he also was not a peasant. He comes from a family of magistrates in the city of Lyon. So he was born into this family, well-educated family, that were magistrates and were sent to be educated at the Pestalozzi Institute in Verdun in Swiss, on the path to also become a magistrate. For the ones that the name Pestalozzi doesn't ring a bell. And I was explaining this some other day, and someone say, but why are you talking about Pestalozzi? How is it is important here? Pestalozzi is a very famous teacher and pedagogue that is still influences how many schools teach their pupils. I studied in a school that was influenced by his methods, and it's very common up to this day to see schools that follow his ways of teaching and his philosophy. So if you can imagine that he still influenced what we do today, he was very quite famous at the time. A really well-respected institute that Professor Rivera went to study on. And at that time, it was interesting because as he were not specialized, you studied algebra, you studied literature, you studied chemistry, you studied physics. So when he graduated, he was a teacher, a professor of several subjects, as we call today. Today, we tend to be quite specialized. You don't study, I have a master in economics. The first thing people ask me, oh, but you have a master in economics of what? What field, what subfield, what general subfield? I'm not, just by curiosity, my master is on English. So it's economics of religion, just out of curiosity. But at that time, they had this broad view. So when he graduated, he went back to Lyon, did not fit, then decided to establish himself in Paris. In Paris, he did so many things. He was that person that, if I can imagine, probably some of you have met that person that has too much energy for its own sake, that does 200 things at the same time. That was Professor Rivera. He teaches that he had a school, he teaches different subjects, he wrote educational pedagogical books, some of them that were recognized by the French authorities at the time as to influence the way the system worked and works up to this day. Manuals of how to study chemistry, astronomy, so on and so forth. He was member of several learned societies. That's how they call the institute, because at the time they gather to study subject A, subject B, subject C. And one that is important here is he was member of Society of Magnetism. If anyone has learned about Mesmer and his studies on the 18th century on animal magnetism, that it was a field in medicine that they were trying to see. Mesmer did interesting studies, he thought by magnetism he could help cure people. So he would sit in, would you imagine, he would see his patient, I would call, would sit with, and he would sit within, get his knees to lock the thighs of the patient, and through that in place his hands, so to transfer magnetism and help cure the patients. And it was a very famous, he was very influential, and up to when Kardec was there, this was that animal magnetism was able to cure patients while still being studied. And as a consequence of Mesmer and other ones, that continued very strongly up to the end of the 19th century. So Kardec was also in that part. So he gave much time to the practical investigation of somnambulism, trance, clairvoyance, and other phenomena that happened and were associated what they call mesmeric action, or these magnetism or animal magnetism. Just two facts about his life. He married Amélie Gabrielle Boudet in 1832 and discarnated in 1969. But this is a view, when I got it there, you might be asking, what's she telling me all of that? Why is this guy important? Some of you might look at the picture and say, I know this guy. His name is not Rivera. His name is Allan Kardec. So why is she talking about this guy that was studied, that participated in learning society? This is not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking to understand who is Kardec. who is this guy that I know the picture of? But to learn who is this guy and the way Spiritism has been codified by him using this code name of Allan Kardec, it is important to understand his background, his journey, how he came to here. When he came to codify and write the Spirits book, if I'm not mistaken, 1857, and I might get the date wrong, but I'm very positive it's the correct date. He was this guy, intellectual guy, very much into research, very much on getting to the nuts and bolts of anything and understanding deeply and using this scientific mind to solve problems, because that's his training. That's what he did for a living. That's what he understood for. And also one thing that important is he came to a lot of that because of magnetism, because he already was studying a lot of these phenomena under a different name and was prone to that. So that is his journey. He was already in the look for answers, that he was going through different things. I'm not going to mention anything much about Amélie, but Amélie was the one that continued his legacy throughout time. So she's really important for us because she's the one that not only supported him but continued his legacy. He has no kids. They did not have kids. So how this intellectual person that had all this history became Allan Kardec? To understand that, we need to go a bit back in a bit. And if you go and look at this picture, if you recognize or might not recognize this picture on the left side, some of you might have participated on something similar to the picture on the right, and just say, oh, they use clothes that we don't use anymore, but some have participated on something similar. But on the left side, these are the Fox sisters. And these sisters, it's a mark, as everything that needs a mark in history. They moved into a house in the United States. They are American. And they move into a house and they start listening to sounds, knocks. You are here doing nothing, and suddenly you say, what is going on? And different sounds. But they were very, how I would call, smart or curious. And then they started to understand that these were not random noises. This did not come out of nowhere, because they noticed there was something more there. This was not random. So they developed some system and they started asking questions, and through the knots and different knots and ways and this and that, they figured it out that the knots were talking about someone that has been killed and was buried in the garden. So they went there, dig, find the body and say, oh, really? Nobody never knew about that. And from there, from this period, probably they were not the first ones to do that in this way, might have happened and happened in different parts of the world, but they were the ones that mark a point in history, an inflection in history, that this phenomena start to be taken more in a different light. I'm not going to say more seriously. I'm going to say they were to be taken in a different light. And in that different light, that it started a movement in Europe, in the US, in Europe, to start investigating this phenomenon. That takes me to the table to the right, to the picture on the right. They start noticing that if some people were sitting on a table and start asking the question with a predefined code, let's say, if you knock once, it's yes. If you knock twice, it's a no. If you knock three, it's an A. Whatever sort of code you agree, they start asking questions, and the table would start one. Oh, that question is yes. that question is a no. This is an A. And from that system, they start understanding that. That got the attention of Professor Rivero. It was a very common pastime at Europe at the time, in France. And Kardec said, okay, curious, I'm gonna go and see and understand. And he went there and he started seeing that some of the questions were really reasonable and reasoned. They were intelligent answers to the question. And he started thinking on his mind, you know what, if there's an intelligent answer, if there's a consequence that is intelligent, there might be a cause that is intelligent as well. What is that cause? And he started remember, the guy is a scientist, trained in philosophy, trained in scientific method. He started using his mind to develop questions and say, okay, question A, ask in a group, ask in a group, send this question to different groups, and starting compiling these answers. And start comparing that a lot of people come to the same conclusion. I'm gonna do a preview for next session, for our next time together. One of the question is, what is God? And the answer was the same in several groups, as it is the same in Islam or Hinduism. It's the same question, is the primary cause of everything. But that's it for next time. Through this method, he then came to the conclusion that you don't need the tables. They started doing with a basket and a writing mechanism. They said, if you said that, realize they don't need a basket, they could do directly, and some people start writing, then some people start talking. And through that method, and they realized also that they were requiring some specific people to be there. They called these people mediums, the ones that were able to communicate with the spirits of one way or the four. Hello, if I'm gonna stop here, any questions up to this moment?
People can be free to do questions now.
Yes, the one thing is, and through that thing, through this method, Professor Rivero decided and compile, use his mind. He came to the Spirits book that, as I said, was published in 1857. And the book contains thousands of questions and answers. It's a Q&A, how is very fancy now that people do Q&A and companies do Q&A. And they have several questions of highly philosophical and moral aspects in a very scientific way, organized in a very scientific way. The one question you might have, so why did he not, where Allan Kardec came from? Allan Kardec, he learned, was a name Professor Rivero used on one of his previous incarnations as a druid priest, and he decided to use that name to dissociate his career as an educator and psychologist, not out of shame of any way or form, but to emphasize the teachings. So, and that's why most of us refer to him as Allan Kardec. That is the name he decided to use to emphasize one of the things that we're going to talk about, that the teachings come from the spirits and he was the codifier. So that's me. That is it for the history part. We can continue, and I can continue talking about how many books he wrote. That would be 5 that we consider the main books of Spiritism. He founded a Spiritist society in France that continues to this day. He has continued up to this day in different ways or forms. We also have the Spiritist magazine that he wrote for so many years. He wrote some very interesting booklets that you're going to see mentioned here. There's one that I absolutely adore that is called Spiritism in its most simple expression. What is Spiritism? He was very prolific in working. And we also have one that a book that was compiled after his discarnation in 69. Okay. Hello, Aman.
Hello.
And I also think we have Lucas on the call.
Hello.
Hello. Please, anytime you wanna ask question, just unmute. I'm able to see here if you unmute, if you have any questions, or you can drop a question on the chat box that we are able to answer. If I am able to answer, otherwise I'll just ask. I'll give my what I know, what I don't know. I'll be very clear. I don't know. One thing is, people ask me, what is Spiritism? And this is the easiest and the most difficult question someone can ask me. It's an easy one to say, because one key aspect of Spiritism is that it's a doctrine found on the existence, the manifestation, and the teachings of the spirits. There is no Spiritism without spirits. There is no a critical belief in this theory or philosophical doctrine is the existing manifestation, the teaching of the spirits. That is one of the cornerstones, the pillars of it. The consequence of that is, if it's critical on the spirits, what are spirits then? There are different ways to define what are spirits. The spirit books define as the intelligence principle on the universe. One of the two main components of the universe. You have spirits and you have matter. And spirits are the intelligence principle that drives. And one thing that is critical, well, not critical, but is interesting, is a lot of people think as spirits that are separate things from the creation. So there is me and there is spirits. There is me and there are angels. There are me and little devils. I don't like that word, but just using it in the sake of most common definitions. No, spirits are not like that. We are spirits. I am a spirit. And I can use the word souls or spirits, and usually they're interchangeably, but there's a minor thing that I would comment. But spirits are the souls of those who use it to live on earth. It's me without my corporeal envelope. It's Elsa, it's Ahmed, it's Lucas, and all of us. All of us have this soul or spirit that whenever we don't have this corporeal thing here, we call that the spirit. When we have this, we call it soul. But it's the same thing. It's the same intelligence principle that inhabits, in a way to say, this body, this corporeal envelope. Did I have one before? Certainly. Am I going to have another corporeal envelope in the future? Certainly. As today I'm wearing this white blouse, next week probably I'm going to be wearing a black one, or the other week a blue one. And I use it, but I wasn't using yesterday. I think it was a blue. So it's us. So when we are talking about the existence of spirits, we are talking about that we have within us, the soul is a spirit. And whenever we lost this corporeal envelope, we can still manifest itself. We can still communicate through different ways and forms with the ones that still have the corporeal envelope, because we are the same. We are just using a different clothes. As one day I don't go much, but if I go to a ball, I have my formal outfit, or more usually when I go to the office, I have a more formal outfit than when I work from home, that I'm usually wearing my t-shirts or something. It's just a different body. But in a way, if this is it, if you believe in the soul, if you believe in the intelligence principle, must therefore believe in the existence of the spirits. So if you deny the spirits, you deny the soul, because they are exactly the same. I'm gonna pause here because some people would say, Vanessa, this is too controversial. You are telling me things that might not be what I believed before. But in a way, it's interesting that most traditions, philosophical and religious tradition, in a way or form, have this belief. The Greeks had this belief through Aristotle and the reincarnation already existed there. The Egyptians had that, if you can imagine, all the pyramids, and they do the cremations and not the cremation, sorry. You mummify and leave to the spirit everything that was his, and food and water and all of that, because he could come back. So there was a soul there, because if there was something to come back, there's a soul. So throughout.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, David.
Hey. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, you can ask many questions.
Why in Christianity has that like why do proper Christians not really believe in that? Is there a reason? Yeah, is there a reason?
I would not venture that much, but I think there is a reason. I think what you need to separate here is what is written on the books from what the institutions have made out of that. Because if you think about the history of Jesus and the first apostles, they talked about the spiritist phenomenon or manifestation of spirits. If you think of after Jesus died and they gathered together, and there is, if I'm not good on that, but I think the day of the Pentecost, when they talk in different languages, there's a part of the Bible when John the Baptist goes to an island on the Greek Sea, and he writes the final chapter because he says he goes there to meditate. Even the phenomenon of Jesus coming back after the crucifixion and reappearing, to the lack of a better word. So and even if you go back in the Jewish tradition, you had the prophets that were in a way mediums. And you had Moses that talked to God and talked to different spirits. So within the books, it is there.
Okay.
The thing is, without going too much controversy on the institution itself, the Bible that we know today was compiled through different versions. And apparently in one of the versions, they try to cut it out for political reasons or the way of sword. So that's one of the translations. So that's why recently you're going to see recent translations different from the official King James one.
Yeah.
So to go back to the roots, because we are humans. The one thing about spirits is we are born, we are created by God, ignorant to learn, and we are evolving. We are on that path. We are on that journey. So we are not a perfect spirit yet. And on that journey, we do good things and bad things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we take the sinner's path.
Cool. Thank you very much.
No, very good question, David. Helping clarify another point. Thank you. One thing that usually is asked is Spiritism and Spiritualism the same thing? Anyone want to venture? In reality, they are similar but not similar. The definition is Spiritualism is the opposite of materialism. Spiritualism is if anyone believes there's something more than matter, you can be considered a spiritualist. And the way I see is, I trained a lot in math. So if you have this, when you go to school and the teacher tells you that there are these groups, and these are the broad groups and groups within the group. So Spiritism are a group within the broader group of Spiritualism, that we believe that the communication, as I said before, is the cornerstone of existence, communication, and manifestation and communication with the spirits. We believe there's something else, and it's possible to communicate or to see phenomena within these spirits. So that is different from a lot of the spiritualist traditions that believe, okay, there's something different from matter, but I cannot communicate. That is, for instance, today, on your question, David, the position of many of the Catholic traditions throughout the world. We know there are some new evangelical, new gospel, how do I call that believe in that. So even in some more traditions, Christian traditions, that communication is to exist. But the Catholic Church, I would say, it might be considered spiritualist, but not a spiritist. Even though I will tell you, my father has the most interesting conversation with our local priest. The other thing that sometimes people ask me, is it Spiritism a new recent fad, something that happened 200 years ago and never happened before? Not actually. The phenomena has happened throughout history. I like this way they call it, has been lost in the night of time, meaning has happened since the first of us incarnated in this world, and can be found in very different religions and traditions and non-traditionals. I've been recently learning that, for instance, in Africa, and Ahmed can tell me more about it, there's a lot of different old traditions that communicate with spirits through the loss of time. It's part of what they do, it's part of what they understand. They call it different ways, they have different names. But it has been happening throughout time. And for instance, when they came to the Americas, they brought the Santeria, what is called in the Caribbean, or they are the Candomblé in Brazil, but in different parts of the world. Or if I went to Asia, they have different ways of calling this phenomena. But it has been happening, it's nothing new. Maybe now we have different names and more understanding, and thanks to this very enlightened mind of Kardec, a very organized way of looking at that and understanding and codifying the learning, so we can take these learnings and apply in our daily lives. The other question that some of you might be...
Can I just ask another quick question from...
Sure, you can ask all questions you want, David, and my pleasure.
Is there much crossover between, not much crossover, but I mean more in terms of like, do the Spiritists talk to many of these other groups that also believe in this sort of stuff as well? So, for example, like people involved in candomblé or other things, or is it, does each one kind of do their own thing sort of separately?
Do you know what is interesting? You mentioned candomblé. I know there are some candomblé groups in Brazil that do study Kardec.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the one thing also, a good thing you asked is, in Spiritism, you don't need, this is a body of knowledge that you can be a Catholic and be a Spiritist. You can be an Hindu or a Buddhist and be a Spiritist. And you can follow different traditions and different groups and still be a Spiritist.
And like within the British Union of the Spiritist societies, are there, would you say like most of the people are like just straight Spiritist, or are most of the people like Spiritist as well as believing in other stuff as well? Or not believing in other stuff, but like following other traditions and everything else?
We see people coming from all walks and sorts of life. And for instance, there are some of our groups. We have a group in Bournemouth that has a very close relation with a spiritualist church in town, and sometimes they do joint sessions or joint studies or events. So we do see people coming from all walks of life, and some people that come to learn the answer, to come in pain because I need an answer to something, and get their answers and go back to their group. Because also we're going to talk a little bit more. Spiritism is not a religion. It's a way for you to connect with your inner self, and give you tools to connect with your inner self and connect with the divinity, with God.
Okay.
So different people have different ways and different journeys. And sometimes you do a step ahead and sometimes you do 10 steps back. I'm probably doing 10 steps back at the moment, but you do different ways.
Cheers, thank you.
You're welcome. Just on the sake of time, I will go through a couple more questions that you might have. So, does the Spiritism has a single authority on the teachings? Not. When you say a single authority, meaning, is there a single person that has all the knowledge and has it all? We have kind of a pope thing as the Catholic Church, or an imam, or some sort of that. No, because when God wished us to understand that, He spread the word from different parts to pole, as Kardec said, through the spirits to deliver the message everywhere. So it's the privilege was not restricted to one group or the other. So it's to any individual that would be willing to entertain seriously the thought. Kardec, on this book, one book that is called By the Spiritism, emphasized that if you want to understand this requires that you are serious and taking a mind of learning what is it about as well. One other thing is, I don't pretend to be specializing in physics. I haven't learned about that. So I have to take, if I want to know about physics, I have to take the time to learn about physics. Same as a Spiritism, you have to take the time and learn a bit to know what it is about, and understand and be serious on, I would call less about the word serious, be open, with an open mind to it. As I said, this is not a religion. Spiritism doesn't have any ritualist form, no prescribed, there is no dogma, it doesn't have priests, doesn't have temples, doesn't have church. Now we do a lot of our, as we are doing now, we're talking online through Zoom. We meet in one part of the other, We meet today, our SSL group in Bethnal Green on Thursdays. Everybody's invited. And we go there, but if it's not there, we can go to a different place. We don't need to build temples. You don't need dogmas. We don't have priests. I'm here today, can be other person. There's no thing as hidden knowledge. All the knowledge that is there, it is there. It's accessible to anyone. You can access the Spirit's book or any of the medium's book, the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Genesis, Heaven and Hell. There are the 5 books online. You just have to Google or go to Kardecipedia, and all the Spirit's magazines from the time of Kardec, they are there. There's no hidden knowledge. It's taking the time to learn. So if it is not a religion, is it a science? It is a philosophy? It is both, because in a way, Spiritism looks and understands the phenomena of the manifestation of the Spirit as a science of observation. We are observing the phenomena, and from observing the phenomena and the teachings of the spirits, we create, Kardec helped us understand and create this philosophical doctrine that helped us as a practical science. That practical science of observing the manifestation and taking out the philosophical aspect, and most importantly, the philosophical aspect has moral consequence, because the philosophical aspect covers questions humanity has had since the night of time. Why am I here? What am I here for? What is this life for? Where am I going? I was born with this body? What is the goal of life? These are philosophical questions that philosophers throughout history were trying to understand. A lot of these answers are on the Spirit's book. And because you get this answer of this high quality philosophy, let's put it this way, you understand that, and there are moral implications. When you understand where you came from and where you're going, what is the goal of life, I'm pretty sure, and I would make a bet that you'll change your behavior, because you understand a lot of things with different lights. And I can tell, and I'm pretty sure some of you would tell me that through understanding some of that, you already had changed, even knowing a little bit or more or less, or can tell stories of people that have been confronted on the time of someone's passing, or family passing, discarnating, a person that couldn't get pregnant, let's say, and understand the reasons of that, and understand that and develop an answer to that based on the understanding of this continuity and the cycle of reincarnations that we all are in. I think I'll give you just 2 more pages and 2 more questions that I think are really important to close this. Throughout the next couple of weeks, we're going to study more on the teachings and the principles of Spiritism. We already understand from today where it came from, a little bit of the history, understand about the phenomena, we are going to talk more about spirit. What is the spirit? I just gave you some hints. As I give some hints on what is God, we're going to go a little bit deeper about that. We understood this is not a religion. We understood the philosophical. We understood a couple of questions. As we go in the next couple of weeks, understanding deeper a couple of critical aspects that the Spiritist teaches us. It is important to understand what is the goal of this. And I wanted to highlight the essential objective of Spiritism is humankind moral evolution. We don't need to look for anything else than to evolve ourselves morally and on an intellectual progress. So even though we are not here, Spiritism, even though we talk about the phenomena, the manifestation, the understanding of the spirits, this is not a pastime that we talk to spirits, is not something that we do just out of curiosity. Oh, I feel like I want to know if this really exists, so I'm going to play a game and get some friends here. I might be a medium, get some friends and see if no, this isn't not we're here for. Yes, the manifestation, it is here, and the spirits are part of life. They're here today, they're here with all of you. But this is it, we are looking for a moral evolution of humankind. And when we say humankind here, we are all humankind in a way, because the spirits that are here with us, surrounding us, are part of this big family. We are connected in a way. So we help each other evolve morally by helping each other, because we are part of this big family. They are connected in so many different ways that we're going to learn more on the coming session. So
Vanessa, we have 4 minutes before prayer.
No, this is the last one, Elsa.
Okay.
Because I want to leave everyone to say, what is a true spiritist? The true spiritist, as I was saying, is not the one that believe in the manifestations, but the ones that make most out of it. It doesn't make any good to anyone if you do not enable to take you a step forward on this action. So the invite and probably the way I introduce myself is, yes, it's important for all of us to study. It is important for all of us to understand, but it's important that we understand this and take a step forward on our moral evolution, so we become better version of ourselves and better version of towards our neighbor. Well, that's what we are here to talk about. And I think that was it for today. If Elsa told me, probably we have 2 minutes or 3 minutes, if anyone has any final questions or comments.
I think you cover very well, Vanessa. Now is food for thought for everyone to be ready next week and do other questions, or even download PDF, the Spirits book, from our website, www.buss.org.uk. So people can read the PDF, 1,019 questions, and be ready for next week.
You'll be ready. Don't need to read all the questions till next week, right? I don't think I can manage the 1,000 questions till next week. But read some. The first one talks about the existence of God, and the first chapter talks about God. It's a good start.
Wonderful. So would you like to do the final prayer, Vanessa?
Yeah, I can do that if there are no further questions or comments from anyone. Okay. So I'll do the prayer. I'll stop sharing this. So with this spirit